Okay, so good morning once again. My name is Victoria Enchi, and I'm your TA for this group. Before we start the resume into the main class, I just want you to know that no, I'm not even letting you know. I'm reminding you that we have just limited time. Like we have just 6 weeks to complete all this work. So we need to really move at a little faster rate and then do our best to read most of the time by ourselves. We should do the research by ourselves so that at the end of the 6 weeks, when it's time for exams, we will not find ourselves wanting. So please, let's just get ourselves ready for this short semester. So today, we are going to look at mainly the session 1 of what we discussed in our main class. Please, that. So we are going to look at the first session, which has been discussed by during our main lecture. And we all know that there is an assignment for us to do. So we would look at the assignment. We are not going to answer the assignment, but then we are going to look at how best we would approach the assignment to get an A or a B or a good grade. Please, are we all fine? Please, is that okay? You can unmute yourself only when you want to speak. So you can just unmute yourself. Please, is that okay?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, so you see, there is an assignment on session 1, which is the concept of information and concept of management. I'm sharing my screen so that you can see. Yeah, so this is it. Please, can you see?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
please.
Yes.
Yes,
So
madam.
please, this should be a very interactive session. I am not going to lecture. I'm not a lecturer. So you should be contributing, and we should be learning on this platform. If you have any concern, just just prompt me. You can just unmute yourself and speak at any time. We are all learning in this class. Nobody is better than anybody. Nobody is excellent. Nobody is dull. And please, if you have any question, just feel free to ask. Don't think that, oh, we've passed this topic and I'm taking us back. It's not your colleague students that are going to answer the question. If I am the one that's going to respond to your question. So if you have any question, just ask. Do not worry yourself about whatever anyone is going to say, because I am going to respond to the question. So just ask any question that you want to ask, even if you don't understand. Whether I've explained it like 4 times and you still don't understand, please ask. I don't mind explaining again and again for you to get it. Okay. So please let's get ready for this. Has any of you tried answering the question or looking at the assignment?
Yes, madam.
Yes, we have.
Okay, so I would want to have you tell me how you decide to approach the assignment. So how did you start it? What have you done so far? How did you start answering the question? You know, it's an essay question, and I believe this is your first essay question, right?
Yes, madam.
Yes. So how are you approaching this particular question?
Madam,
Mhm.
it was requesting of us to give all sorts of external information.
Mhm.
Then you have to explain it as well.
Okay.
So it's such an essay question. You need to explain what external information is?
And so let me share the question so that for those who have not seen it yet, please, the question is even in your lecture notes. So if you have not seen the question yet, this is the assignment that you need to submit before 25th, before or on 25th of April. Yeah, so please, I'm listening to you.
And madam, as I was saying, I said such an issue need to explain what external information is. Then you go to the main question. Then you go to what was asked of you. Said 4 sources of it. So when you mention one, then you explain them. If possible, you give an example to each.
Okay. Yes, so that's great.
That's
Please your name. When you want to speak, please mention your name so that I can identify you. Okay.
My name is Emmanuel.
Emmanuel. Okay. So thank you, Emmanuel. Please say any other. This is an interactive class. Let's just learn from each other. Thank you. So please tell me, how are you dealing with this question? Hey, my people, speak to me. Eh? Oh, so no one has. Yes, Abigail, please speak.
Madam, please, I think with this question, you start by explaining what information is, then you give the difference between internal and external sources. Then you come to the main question. That's when you give and you describe the 4 sources of external information, please.
Yes, that's great. Abigail has given a point also. That's very correct. Please, any other? So we have Emmanuel and Abigail speaking. Any other, please? Hey, my people, I'm waiting for you.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Please, I'm Cecil.
Okay.
I was thinking you would explain organization first. Then later you'd go with explaining internal thing, and you start with the main question.
Okay. That's also correct. So you see, none of you have given a wrong answer. None of you have given a wrong approach to it. But you know, however you decide to, whichever way that you decide to approach. Okay, Deborah, please speak.
Yeah, so as my colleague said, the same thing. So you first of all define the external sources of information as well as the internal. Then thereafter you go to the main question, but you would separate it maybe when you are giving a point for external sources of information, you state that one first and give briefly explanations on that, as well as some examples of such sources of information. Thereafter, you come down to explain maybe the next one, as in the internal sources of information. So you do the same thing for the internal sources of information too as well.
That's great, Deborah. That's also great. So as I was saying, none of you have given a wrong approach. Deborah, Abigail, Emmanuel, and Churchill, you've all made a very good contribution to it. And that's great. So let me make this point that most of the time we know we have the answers to all the essay questions that we've been given during exams. But then how you approach it is what to differentiate the A from the B plus and the B plus from the B. So how you present your work is what is going to differentiate the grades that you get, because we all have the same answer. How we would explain it, how we will present it is how what will determine the score or the grade that we get. So this is how I believe that we can go about this assignment. Not just this, but then for many of the essay questions that we receive. I am not saying you should do it as mandatory, you do it this way. This is just a suggestion. This is just something I would want to suggest that you do, just so that you get the differentiation mark between the B and the B plus, and between the B plus and the A. So first of all, you need to look at the question. You really need to look at the question and see what the question is requesting for. So this is the question. I believe you can all see the screen. Please, can you all see the screen?
Yes, madam.
Yes, so please, can
Yes,
someone
please.
read the question for us? This is the question, so someone should read the question for us.
An
Organizations may obtain information
either from an internal or an external source. Briefly describe any four sources of internal information and any four sources of internally generated information. Elaborate on the nature of information required at each of the material level.
Okay, so thank you, Deborah. First, we will have to break down the question. Okay, we'll have to break down the question and pick the keywords from the question. Then we can fully start our answering the question. And most of the time, even if you are to have this question in your examination, during your main examination, and let's assume it's a sit-in that you sit at the examination hall and then write, you should have time to plan your essay. Usually when you plan your essay, you are able to just flow the moment you start writing. So the moment you take about 5 minutes or 10 minutes to plan the essay, when you start writing, you know what you are writing in paragraph 1, you know what you're writing in paragraph 2, you know what you're writing in the conclusion. So at the end, an essay question that you would have usually taken an hour or 2 to write, you can use 30 minutes to write it, just because you planned the essay. So please do well to plan your essay whenever you have a question to answer. So let's look at this. Please, someone should take the first part of the question for me, from organizations to sources.
Organizations may obtain information either from an internal or external sources.
Yeah, so organizations may obtain information either from an internal or external sources. Thank you, Emmanuel. So what are some of the keywords that can be identified from just this part of the question? What are some of the keywords that can be identified from this part of the question?
Organizations.
Yeah, so we have organization.
Internal, then external.
Yes, we have internal and external. Any other?
As well as information.
Yes, information. That's very great. So we have organization, we have internal and external, we have information. So you note these keywords down. So this, the first thing we are doing, we want to plan the essay. So the first thing we are doing is identifying the keywords in the essay. So now we have internal, we have organization, we have information, we have internal or external sources. So let me, okay, yeah, so when we are done, we can just, okay, so I will be taking some of the comments from the chat room as well, so that we don't leave anyone behind. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking, okay, so that we don't get feedback. Okay, so Naomi says you can define information first and give the form of information, which is internal, and explain. You can explain both and give examples on them. That is correct, Naomi. Okay, Lauricia too is saying that basically, I think you will start your introduction by explaining what information is, and then you can talk about the primary, secondary, and tertiary source of information. Then you start the main body with the internal and external source of information. Yes, Lorisha is introducing something that I am also interested in. Thank you so much, Lorisha. And Ruth is also saying, oh yes, Ruth, you get a recorded version of the class, do not worry. But then it's good when you are here so that you can get all your questions clarified. So let's continue. So we've identified organization, we've identified information, we've identified internal, and we've identified sources. Can someone be external sources? Sorry, can someone be typing them in the comment section so that anyone who comes in later can see? So we've identified organization, we've identified information, we've identified internal sources, we've identified external sources in the first part of the question. So let's look at the second part of the question. Someone should please take the second part of the question for us.
Briefly describe any four sources of external information and any four sources of internally generated information.
Thank you very much, Ruth. So we have, so how many keywords can be generated from here? Some, I know some has been generated already, but what is the question requesting of us?
It is requesting us to briefly describe the sources of internal and external information.
Okay, that's what the question is asking for. So now you should have it in your mind that the answer to the question that you need to provide is four sources of internally generated information and then four sources of external information. So that is what the question is requesting from us. So now we have organization, we have information, we have internal and external sources. And the question is asking us to describe briefly four sources of internal and external information. So someone should also take the last part of the question for us. The last part of the question.
On the nature of information required at each of the managerial levels.
So thank you. Elaborate on the nature of information required at each of the managerial levels. So what other keyword can also be generated from here?
Elaborate.
Elaborate. And then any other?
Nature.
Nature of information.
Nature of information.
Yes, nature of information. And then the last one?
Managerial level.
Thank you very much. So we have to elaborate on the nature of information at each managerial level. So we have now in all, we have organization, we have information, we have internal and external sources, which is four. And then we have to identify four sources each of internal and external information. And then we elaborate the nature of information required at each managerial level. So now we've identified the keywords. We've identified the keywords in the question. We can now start planning for our essay. So first of all, I have identified three approaches that we can use to answer this question. Three different approaches. They are not entirely different, but then it's just the arrangement and then presentation on how it's going to be. So I am very sure that we have read or researched about this question. So most of the answers will be coming from you. Most of the answers will be coming from you. So we are taking the first part. I wish I could, let me see if I can show what I have written for you. so that you see. Okay. Okay, please hold on. Let me see. But is it something that you can see? Is it something that you can see? Let me check. If you can see, just let me know. Can you see?
No, please.
No.
It's not too clear, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
No, no, no.
please.
You can't open.
Okay, let me try something else. Let me check if I can share with my camera. Okay, so we are looking at that. So you see there is P1, there is P2, there is P3, there is P4. The P is an abbreviated, it's just represents paragraph. So paragraph 1, paragraph 2. So you know you need to have your essay written in paragraphs. Please, are we okay? Yeah, so
Yes,
that's why
madam.
you see the P1, the P2 there. So the first approach I think we can use is first define information. Then you define information, you define organization, and then you state the sources of information. You see, I mentioned that Lauricia has said something that I am interested in. See, we don't have just internal and external sources of information. We have primary, secondary, and also tertiary. But then this question is mainly centered on internal and external sources. So you can just state that internal, you can state internal, external, primary, secondary, and tertiary as the sources of information. But then your main focus should be on the internal and external. Yeah, so you can just state those one in, but then the main focus should be on internal and then external. So what is information? Someone should just give a definition of information. I believe you have that already. So you can just type it, or you unmute yourself and you speak, please. Hey, please, I'm waiting. Oh. Hey, my people.
Information is data that has been converted into a meaningful and then useful context for specific end users.
Okay, that's very true. Thank you, Tracy. Any other information is a processed data from Sadiq. Okay. It's not too complete, but it's also a definition. So, but do well to give a complete definition of information. The data, the processed data should be meaningful. It should be meaningful to the user or the one that's requested for the information. So to get a complete essay, you should have an introduction, which I believe we all know. We have a body, and then we have a conclusion. Depending on the question, you can have more than 3 paragraphs where your introduction and your conclusion is not missed. So your introduction should be in your first paragraph, your conclusion should be in your last paragraph. Depending on the question, as I said earlier on, that will determine the number of paragraphs that you will get. So what we are looking at now is P1, that is paragraph 1. And with the first approach, you define information. Then we define organization. So can someone give us a definition of organization? You can just type it in the chat room, or you just unmute yourself and speak a definition of organization.
An organization
Mm-hmm.
is an organized group of people with a particular purpose, such as business or government department. It's an organized people, a group of people
Mm-hmm.
with a particular purpose, such as business or government department, or the action of organizing something.
That's the action of organizing something. Okay. So anyone, any other organization.
Organization is an entity, such
Organization
as
is an entity. Mm-hmm.
such
Please
as
continue.
okay, organization is an entity such as company, an institution, or an association comprising one or more people and having a particular purpose.
That's also correct. So we have two
An
definitions.
organization.
Yes, Michael, I'm listening to
An
you.
organization is a social unit of people structured and managed to pursue a particular goal.
A social unit of people structured and managed to pursue a particular goal. That's true. The goal is very necessary. Yes, any other? Okay, from Duncan, organization is a group of people who has a common goal and coordinates with each other to achieve this purpose. That is also very true, Duncan. From Abby, it is when a group of people come together for a common goal or achievement. Yes, so that is also correct, Abby. So there should be a purpose for or an aim or a goal for the organization. So now, having defined information and organization, please make sure all this is being put together in the introduction. The introduction should be as good as your entire essay. So you have information defined, you have organization defined, then you state the sources. So how are you going to, someone should just tell me how you are going to state the sources. It's the essay that you are writing, no. So please, I don't want you to just tell me internal and external, or primary, secondary, tertiary, internal and external. Tell me what you would have written in that part of the introduction. Hello, Vincent, do you want to tell us something? Hey, my people, I'm waiting for you. Now you've defined, yes, okay. So now you've defined information. You've defined also organization. And the next thing there is to state the sources. So how are you going to state the sources?
Okay, Madam, since you have been able to explain the organization, then information.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, trying to make it known or someone who hasn't been to school before, for the person to understand, need to explain what external information or sources is.
Mm-hmm.
And then internal, after explaining them, then you try to give the sources.
Emmanuel, is it Emmanuel?
Yes, madam.
Yes, so I'm not cutting you. Yeah, you're on point. Just that I want you to tell me how you are going to write it. So put English together. So this is mine. I've defined information, I've defined organization. So the next thing I am doing is to state the internal and external sources. So I would say that there are there are five sources, there are five identified sources of information which includes internal and external sources of information. That is what I've said. What are you going to say? Please, do you get the question?
Yes, madam.
Yes, so what are you going to say there? This is not just for Emmanuel, it's for all of us.
Okay, to start, I'll begin with my statement is therefore to begin with, comma. There are 4 or 5 sources of external information.
Okay.
Full stop.
Namely, and I start mentioning them.
Okay, that's great.
After mentioning them, then I'll go on to let you know what external sources of information is.
Okay, that's fine. So
After,
I wanted the part that where you would bring the types of information and what you state there. So thank you very much, Emmanuel. So we have that cleared. Now, do you remember we had another keyword, which is the managerial level? Do you remember that?
yes, madam.
Yes, madam.
Yes. So we will have to also add the managerial level. So for those who have access to what I've posted on the page, you know that we stated the next thing is state the managerial levels. So what are the managerial levels? We just have to state them because it's also a keyword in the question that also needs to be looked at. Please, the managerial levels.
Madam, we have strategical level. Strategic level. Then tactical level.
And
Operational level.
Exactly. So we have strategic, tactical, and operational. Or which can also be called the top level management, the middle level. Exactly. Thank you all very much. That is correct. So we just have to state that. So now, if anyone picks your essay in the introduction, you've told them what information is, you've told them what organization is, and you've stated the sources of information. And then now you've told them the managerial levels that are in organizations. So you know you've pre-informed any other person who is not a student of information studies of what you are coming to do. So you've given a background to your question. Is that okay? Please, is that clear?
yes, madam.
Yeah, so you've given a background to your question to any reader, whether from an information level, studies background or not. So any person who picks the question can just start from information organization. Oh, okay, so we have this type, these sources of information, we have this levels of management in every organization. Now, you look at the thesis statement. So what is the thesis statement that needs to be looked at? The thesis statement tells the reader or the marker or whoever is taking your work what you are coming to do. So what is the work about? What is the entire work about?
Internal and external source of information.
Yeah, so you tell them what you are going to do. So usually the thesis statement is derived from the question. The thesis statement is derived from the question. So you generate your thesis statement from the question. And the question is, this is what the question is, the question of us. The question is saying, briefly describe any 4 sources of external information and any 4 sources of internally generated information. And then again, it's asking you to elaborate on the nature of information required at each level of management or each managerial level. So a thesis statement can be like, in this essay, I will briefly discuss 4 sources of external information and 4 sources of internal information, and further elaborate on the nature of information that is needed or required at each managerial level. So you see, whatever I said was picked from the question.
Madam, please, can you go over again?
Okay, so in the thesis statement, you are picking the thesis statement from the question. And the question is saying, briefly describe any 4 sources of external information and any 4 sources of internally generated information. And then you elaborate on the nature of information required at each level of the managerial, of management, sorry, or each of the managerial levels. So this will be my thesis statement. Please, I am not saying you should write exactly that. You should be able to coin your own thesis statement, but I just want you to know that the thesis statement is being generated from the question. So this is my thesis statement. In this essay, I will briefly describe 4 sources of external information and 4 sources of internal information, and further elaborate on the nature of information needed at each of the managerial levels. Please, is that okay? Is it okay now, or I should take it again?
It's okay.
Take it again. Take it again.
Yeah, man. Please take it again.
Okay, so in this essay, I will briefly, or let me, maybe I should just, please don't copy it too. No, I won't type it. I wanted to type it, but then some of you would just copy. Please don't copy it. Just look at that so that you'll be able to
Madam, we
come out with your own thesis statement. Okay. So I'm taking it again. In this essay, I will briefly describe 4 sources of internal and external information, and further elaborate on the nature of information needed at each managerial level. I will briefly describe 4 sources of internal and external information, and further elaborate on the nature of information needed at each level of management or at each managerial level. Please, are we okay now?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're
Madam, it's better if you type.
Come again.
Madam, I said it will be better if you type.
I should type. You people, you don't want to go and do your own thing. If you write it, you know I'll catch you. I mean, you know that. You know I'll catch you. So please,
yes,
type
it.
So don't write what
We'll change the words.
I won't copy.
No,
we will change it, so you write it.
We'll change the words. You are looking for synonyms.
Okay, so before I type it, there is a question. Someone is asking if it's very necessary to derive your thesis from the question. Yes, your thesis statement should come from the question, because that is what you are coming to talk about. The thesis statement is telling the reader what you are coming to talk about. And what you are coming to talk about is an answer to the question. Please, do you get it? So you write what you derive it from the question. The only thing you have to do is add verse to it and then make it. Okay, so a thesis statement is a sentence that comes at the central point of your essay. It usually comes at the end of the introduction. Exactly. That's exactly what Naomi has said. That's exactly what Naomi has said. I am going to the Oh, who is disturbing our class? So that's exactly what Naomi has said. That is a thesis statement. Let me take that again. You can look at it also from the chat room. A thesis statement is a sentence that sums up the central points of your essay. It usually comes at the end of the introduction. So you see, at the end of the paragraph 1 that I gave you is thesis statement. So that is what usually ends your introduction. So you see, from what I said, I have summed up the keywords that we picked from the question. So that's exactly what a thesis statement is. Thank you very much, Naomi. So now that we have defined information, we've defined organization, we've stated our sources, and we've talked about managerial levels, we've given our thesis statements, which is a very important part of the question. We can say we are done with our introduction to the question. Please, is there any clarification, any concern, any question on that part? Please, is there any? My people, please respond to me. Oh,
please.
Okay, so we are good to go with the introduction part. Yes, please.
Why?
Please, I didn't hear you.
Please, there's no question.
Supposed to define internal.
Yeah, so you see, I told you I have 3 different approaches to this. So this is just the first one, and in the first one, we are not defining internal or external in the introduction, but you can also do that.
But can you talk about the organization? Like, what are we supposed?
Okay, the network is not, your network is not too clear. Can you please type it in the chat room so that I look at it? The network is not really clear. Okay, please put it in the chat room. I will look at it and then we go over whatever is there. Okay. Okay, so someone is, oh, Jeffrey, I should go over the introduction again. Okay, so the introduction is just a background to your essay, and the background should have definition or some key points from the main question. And at the end, you should have your thesis statement. So in our introduction, we defined information, we defined organization, we defined information, we defined organization, and then we stated the sources of information, which is internal, external. You can add the primary, secondary, and tertiary. And then, but your focus should be on the internal and external. And then we stated the managerial levels, which is the strategic, the tactical, and the operational levels. And then we gave our thesis statements. The thesis statement is the key point of the question. It's usually derived from the question. It brings out what you are coming to do in your essay. Please, is that, Jeffrey, is that okay? Okay, so let me take the next one. This doesn't
Madam,
mean that, yes, please, Michael.
so if you decided to just go straight to the point without any introduction, doesn't mean you are wrong.
No, you're not wrong. You are not wrong. That's why I said at the beginning that how you approach, we all have answers to the question. I have, you have, everybody is having the same answer to the question, but how you present your work is what differentiates between the B and the B plus and the B plus and the A. So your presentation differentiates.
Then it means I'm getting E5.
Oh, no. Or you will not get. The key point is what is going to be marked, but how you present it adds an additional mark. So that is what differentiates between the grades that we usually get. So maybe if you've submitted a work already and you did not go through any of these, do not worry. There are other assignments that or other essays that you would meet, and you can just do this. But that doesn't mean that you are wrong. Please, you are not wrong. You are not wrong at all. Okay, you are not wrong. So
Thank
do
you.
not be bothered.
Okay.
And thank you very much, Michael. So let me take the next question from the chat room. Now, please, does it mean that every question given to us from information studies should be in an essay? No, not all the questions are in our essay format. Not all of them request you to write an essay. You see, usually when you are given an assignment or a test, there is an instruction. So you look at what the question is requesting for in the instruction, and then you do that. So if it's an essay format, you'd see it's an essay format, usually at the assignment part of Sakai. If it's a test, you see it at the test. Those doing political sciences, social sciences, this is also, you can apply this format or approach in writing your essays. This is a general approach. It's not limited only to information studies. It's a general approach that you can apply to all other courses. Okay, please, from the picture you sent on WhatsApp, does it mean that the managerial levels is going to be a different paragraph altogether? Or when we take one internal or external source, we explain the managerial level used? Okay, so Lauricia, we would get to that. We are taking it that way, so we would get to that. Okay. Jeffrey, do not worry. Yeah, you will not be penalized. Okay, this is how I believe that will be the best way you approach your essay. You are not wrong. Okay, you will not be penalized if you've already submitted your work. You are not wrong at all. Primary and secondary are not sources of information, but types of information. Hey, Priscilla, I think you're picking this from INFS 111. I think you're picking this from INFS 111. Primary information is generated from they are first-hand generated information, and they are also sources or types of information. So it's not wrong, please. Can we also define the external and internal sources of information in introductory paragraph? Oh, you can, just that it might look very lengthy, but you can really do the explanation in there. You can explain them in the introduction part. Please, how are we to explain the points in the paragraph? And please let me know which of the points. Is it the organization or the information? That one, you just define them. And the ones that I have stated, you just have to state them. And the thesis statements, you will have to write, outline them. But if it's not clear, please let me know, Grace. I'll give further explanation to it. Okay, so we are good to go. We are done with our introduction. So if you pick an internal source, you pick an internal source of the paragraph 2, to talk about internal source of information. You see, the question is asking you for 4 sources of internally generated information. So there you can define, yes, Brown, please, you have a question, please speak.
Please, I wanted to ask if it's compulsory to do paragraphing in the essay, like the work we are supposed to do.
Oh, it's not compulsory. It's never compulsory to do paragraphs in your essay, but it is the best way to get a good score, that you present your work neatly. You see, usually when you are given an examination script, they state that marks will be awarded for clarity of expression and presentation. So all these count to the grade that you will get. So you just need to make sure you approach your question or you present your questions very well. It makes your work neat, but then it's never compulsory that you put them in paragraphs. Grace, please, are you okay?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So you have to also talk, the next paragraph, you'll have to also talk about the internal sources where you can define your what you can define what's internal information or internal sources. But as I said earlier on, you can put it in the introductory paragraph, but you can also bring it at the beginning of the second paragraph where you are going to talk about the internal sources. You see, a paragraph should have a focus. So paragraph 2 is focused on internal sources of information or internally generated information. So everything under internally generated information can be in paragraph 2. Then you take the next paragraph, which will be the externally generated information. So anything from externally generated information also be in the next paragraph. That it should be said, the paragraph should have a focus. It should, so this one is centered on externally generated information. And then there was a question as to whether or not you are going to dedicate a whole paragraph for the managerial levels. So just so that you have a focus, each paragraph is given a focus. I think that you should dedicate one paragraph for the managerial level. So there you can talk further about the managerial level. You see, in the introduction, we stated strategic, tactical, and operational. But in that paragraph where you dedicate everything in that paragraph to the managerial levels, you can state that, oh, okay, so strategic managerial level can also be referred to as top level management. And the tactical can also be referred to as middle level management that way. So you can just give further elaboration on the managerial levels. And then you go ahead to tell us the information that is needed. So in there you say each level of management or each managerial level will need an information. But then different types of information is needed at this managerial level. So you tell the reader what type of information that is needed, because that is what the question is asking for. So the low level or the operational level will need a very detailed day-to-day information just to enable them operate. The middle management will need not too detailed. The top level management will need strategic information, the key points or the bulleted information that will help them to make strategic decisions. So you look at all these things and you put them in the fourth paragraph. So you should have, the paragraph should have a focus. So you dedicate this to internal, you dedicate this to external, you dedicate this to managerial levels, and then you have the conclusion. The other way is, which I will also send to the page, the other way is you define in organization, then you state the managerial levels, you define the information, then you state the sources of information, and then you give your thesis statement. Then you come to talk about internal sources. The next paragraph you talk about external sources, and the next paragraph you talk about managerial levels. Then you conclude. The last option, which is the C, you give the same introduction with your information, defining organization, stating the sources, and then managerial levels, and then you give your thesis statement. Please do not forget your thesis statement. Okay, please, I would go to the chat room and take the questions coming from there so that we don't miss anyone's concern. Okay, so let me just finish with this. I'll take those ones. Then you dedicate a paragraph to internal sources, you dedicate a paragraph to external sources. Then on the last paragraph, you just give a summary of your essay. Then you bring the managerial levels, the information needed at the managerial levels there. It can also be added to the conclusion. So that will be it for the responses. Please let me take the question from the chat room so that we do a little of answering in the first lecture so that we will be done for today. Our time is past, but let's just complete this and we'll be good to go. Okay, please, I'm coming. I'm taking the Okay. So will this assignment be added to our final mark? Yes, please. You should look at the course outline. Everything is stated in there. This is your first assignment, and it comes with 20 marks. So it will be added to your final grade. It's primary and secondary sources of information, also types of information. Yes, please. You can confirm from your you can confirm from your INFS 1.1 and then 1.1.2 slides that we have primary, secondary, tertiary, and then at some point you bring in internal and then external. Please, Agnes, please hold on. Let me take this one. I will let you come in very soon. Okay. Okay. Madam, please, I still don't understand the elaborate part. So you see, the second part of the question, this is it. The second part of the question is asking you to elaborate on the nature of the information that is required at each of the managerial level. When I'm done responding to your questions, I'll briefly take you to one of the slides not in this in INFS 213, but then in level 100 that has an answer to this question. So you see what the question is requesting for. At each level of management, there is a different type of information that is needed. So the question is asking you to either explain or describe, or just say something about the information that is needed at each of the level of management. This doesn't mean the internal is taking 4 paragraphs, then the external is also taking the same. No, please. It depends on how you are going to present your work. With this approach that I've given you, you can just sum up all the 4 in one paragraph. You can just sum up all the 4 points in one paragraph. But if you would want to write it differently, it means that you're going to have about 12 or 10 or 11 paragraphs. But then if you put it together, as I have shared with you, you can have at most 5 paragraphs. Please, how is the conclusion going to be like? So your conclusion should have a summary of what you've done, what the work is. So just have a bulleted point, or just you pinpoint the key ones. Do not give explanations, because you've explained in the main paragraph of or in the body of the work. So do not give explanation in the conclusion. Okay, so let's say internal sources of internal information, internally generated information include, you state the 4. Then you say the same for external. Then you talk about just the key points of the nature of information needed at each managerial level. So you do not have to write the explanation. Okay, I think that is the last question there. Please, Agnes, please speak to me. I'm listening to you.
Please, I wanted to add.
Please, I'm listening. Oh. Agnes, can you hear me?
That's the paragraph. Internal to be in one paragraph.
Yes.
So
yes.
how many paragraphs?
So in all, we should have, depending on which one you want to go with, we should have 5 at least. No, at most 5 paragraphs with what we have. Can have 4 paragraphs when you decide to put the managerial levels in the conclusion. Please, is it okay? But this is not to say that you should just stick to this. You can derive your own means of answering the question. I just laid out some key things that need not to be missed out in answering your essay question. But you can use your own approach. Just do not miss these key points. Brown, please, can you speak to us?
Madam, please, for the conclusion part, I really didn't get it. So I was asking if you can go over what you said again.
Yes, I can. So the conclusion is a summary of your entire work. That is conclusion. So if you want to give a summary, you know that you don't have to just write everything that you write. In writing a summary, you bring out the key points in the summary. So that's what you bring out, the key points in all the points that you've made, the essays that you've written, the body. You just bring out the key points in the body and sum them up. So it's just a summary. So the conclusion should have the key points you stated in internal sources, the key points you stated in external sources, and then the key points you stated in the managerial levels. Priscilla, please, is it okay? If you still have, yes. So if you still have any question, you can drop them on the page. I'll respond to them, okay? So are we good to go? Let me just show you. Okay. Okay, please. With the typing of the assignment, is it compulsory to type it on Sakai, or you can do it on your laptop and submit as an attachment? Yes. With the instructions that are there, you can submit it as an attachment. So let me see if I can show you the instructions. Unfortunately, I am unable to. Let me check. No, I am unable to check that now. But then I will check the instructions and then send it to the page. So let me see if I can have the answer to the second part of the question. I want to check if I can have that. Okay. So, Priscilla, please, do you have a question?
Yes, please.
Okay, please let me have it. Please speak.
Okay, madam. Like in writing the essay, you see, we have to it's not everything you have to write from a book or something, but you have to do research online and all this. So in doing the research, I was asking if it's important to do reference and where you got the answer from. Can you reference it, adding it to your essay?
Yeah, so with this one, you do an inter-citation most of the time. You do an inter-citation, you put the sources inside because you were not asked to give a full referencing. So you just put it inside. Is that okay? So let's say you want to pick a definition from O'Brien. Brown, I'll get back to you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, please.
What are you saying? Is it a slide or you are seeing the University of Ghana, the Sakai portal?
Freshman information.
Okay. That's okay. So I just want you to get the introduction. But as I was saying, you can do inter-citation. You can do inter-citation where let's say you're picking a definition from O'Brien. You just, according to O'Brien, and you put the year there, you would see according to O'Brien, information is referred to as. So that's one, you've cited the source. You just do an inter-citation when you pick you pick the work from any other person other than your own. Please don't forget to do the citation. Yes, I think, for this work, you can't even type on Sakai. For this assignment, you can't even type on Sakai. You'll have to add an attachment. You'll have to attach. So it's just an attachment. You can't type on Sakai. So it's only an attachment that you do. Please, are we fine?
Please, how do we do that?
The attachment. Okay, so I will send a link to you on the WhatsApp
Madam, I type my own
Should we
on
do it in a
Sakai.
form of?
Oh, and a word there.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Then you can. I think
I
you
think
can. Okay, maybe because
in the instructions, they say we should use the
yeah, I cannot submit the work because I'm not with you. I'm not supposed to submit. I just have it as the instructors.
okay.
Yes, that's why maybe mine appeared like that. But since
Okay.
it has been, Ima has been
I
supposed
think
to submit on Sakai, then think Sylvia too has submitted it on Sakai. Then you can type on Sakai. But then I will share a link with you on the WhatsApp platform where you can check my video on how you submit. You do an attachment on Sakai. So I'll send that one with you also. Where did we, yes, please, I'm listening.
Is that one is it
Please, I can't really hear
the
you.
one you know typing in Sakai? You do your own typing, then you get a PDF and do the attachment one. Attachment one acceptable.
I didn't hear you, please.
I'm saying that is the attachment one. Is it acceptable? Like the one you wouldn't type on Sakai, but rather you do.
I think that option is available. I will check with one of the students to see if it's available, so that I let you know on the page. Okay.
Okay.
Please, any other question? Please, someone raise their hand. Any other question, please?
Madam.
Yes, please.
Please, I tried doing the attachment with my phone, but it didn't work. And I called a friend to ask her. When I asked her, she said for her, she used her laptop.
Oh, okay. The attachment it can even work with the phone. Oh. The attachment can work with the phone. If you are facing any problem with Sakai, you can just drop it on the page. I will PM you and then we sort it out. Okay.
It won't work. It can't work.
It's not working for you too. Please, who else is it not working for?
Yeah.
Okay, I seem not to find the document. So I will get it on my phone and then send it to the platform. The document that talks about the second part of the question, that's the nature of information that is needed at each managerial level. Please, any other questions so that we leave and then start working on our assignment. Okay, so Naomi said the attachment is also available, so you can do the attachment also. You can type on Sakai and you do the attachment as well. Please, any question, any clarification, any concern, please?
No, please.
Okay, so are we good to go?
Yes, please.
Okay, so please do your assignment. Please do well to submit. Don't be thinking that because it's